The galaxy belonged to the Zephyrians. It had been theirs for 3,000 years, and everyone knew it would be theirs for 3,000 more. Their ships moved through space like metal gods, each one the size of a small moon. When they appeared in a star system, planets stopped what they were doing and waited for orders. Emperor Vexthul stood on the crystal bridge of his flagship, watching another world surrender without a fight. The purple-skinned humanoids below had sent their leaders to kneel before him within hours of his arrival. Smart creatures, they understood their place in the universe. "Another easy conquest, my lord," said General Cravion, his forearms folded behind his crystalline back. The Zephyrian stood 12 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor that looked like living glass. Sharp claws extended from each finger, claws that could cut through steel like paper. Vexthul nodded slowly. His mind reached out across space, touching the thoughts of 1 billion creatures on the planet below. Fear, terror, submission, all the proper emotions when facing their betters. His psychic powers could crush minds from millions of miles away, bend entire populations to his will, or simply make them forget they had ever existed. "Send the hive clans to set up mining operations," the Emperor commanded. "The depth swimmers can handle underwater extraction. Have the luminals power their cities." This was how it always worked. The Zephyrians conquered and everyone else served. The insect-like hive clans were excellent engineers, building whatever the Empire needed. The aquatic depth swimmers could work in any environment, from ocean floors to asteroid belts. The energy beings called luminals powered Zephyrian cities and ships. Every species had found their proper place under Zephyrian rule. Some served willingly. Others had needed convincing. But in the end, they all served. The Emperor walked to his throne, a massive chair carved from a single piece of dark crystal. His empire stretched across half the galaxy. Millions of worlds, trillions of beings, all of them working for the glory of the Zephyrian race, my lord, called Navigator Zephyra from her station. Long-range scouts have detected unusual energy readings from the outer rim. Another primitive world trying to reach the stars? Vexthul asked without interest. They found one every few decades, some species that had just discovered space travel, sending out crude metal rockets to explore their local systems. The Empire usually ignored them until they became worth conquering. Unknown, my lord. The signals are strange. They use a combination of chemical propulsion and primitive nuclear reactions. Very inefficient. The Emperor almost smiled. Chemical rockets. How quaint. The Zephyrian Empire had been using antimatter drives and reality warping technology for millennia. Their ships could phase through solid matter or fold space itself to travel vast distances instantly. "What do they call themselves?" he asked. Zephyra checked her readings. "The signals we intercepted refer to their species as humans. They inhabit a small blue world in what they call the Sol system. Humans." Vexthul tested the word. It sounded weak, soft. Like most primitive species, they probably hadn't even developed beyond their home planet yet. "Shall we send a survey fleet, my lord?" The Emperor considered this. His empire was vast, but there was always room for more workers. These humans might have useful skills, or their world might contain valuable resources. At the very least, they could serve as entertainment. Dispatch Admiral Kethvar with a standard observation fleet, he decided. Let him evaluate their potential. Admiral Kethvar received his orders with typical Zephyrian confidence. He commanded 50 ships, each one capable of destroying entire civilizations. His crew consisted of the Empire's best warriors, beings who had conquered hundreds of worlds. "Humans," he said to his officers as they prepared for departure. "Another species about to learn their place in the universe." The fleet departed from the Imperial capital, crossing the galaxy in a matter of days. Their ships moved through folded space, covering distances that would take these primitive humans thousands of years to travel. When they arrived at the edge of the Sol system, Kethvar ordered his sensors to scan the human homeworld. What they found was exactly what he expected. A single planet with roughly 8 billion inhabitants, primitive technology, no energy shields, no antimatter weapons, no psychic defenses. "They have managed to place some crude satellites around their world," reported his science officer, "and they appear to have established small outposts on their moon and nearby planets." Kethvar studied the readings. The humans had indeed spread beyond their homeworld, but barely. Their largest space stations housed only a few hundred individuals. Their technology was laughably primitive. They still used fossil fuels for energy and metal projectiles for weapons. Do they have any form of interstellar communication? He asked. Negative, sir. They appear to be completely isolated. There is no evidence they know of any other intelligent species. Perfect. The humans lived in ignorance, believing they were alone in the universe. They had no idea that advanced civilizations had been watching the stars for millions of years. They didn't know about the great galactic empires, the wars that had shaped entire star clusters, or the technologies that could remake reality itself. Begin standard first contact protocol, Kethvar ordered. We will observe them for several rotations, then make our presence known. For weeks, the Zephyrian fleet remained hidden at the edge of the system, studying human society. What they learned confirmed everything they already knew about primitive species. The humans were divided into hundreds of separate nations, constantly fighting among themselves over resources and territory. They couldn't even unite their own species, let alone pose any threat to an interstellar empire. Their weapons were crude chemical explosives and simple energy weapons. Their fastest ships moved slower than Zephyrian cargo haulers. Most amusing of all, they seemed to believe their primitive technology made them advanced. They were proud of their chemical rockets and electronic computers, not realizing that Zephyrian children played with toys more sophisticated than humanity's greatest achievements. They are ready for contact, Kethvar finally announced to his crew. Deploy the usual formation. Let them see what real power looks like. The 50 Zephyrian ships moved into Earth's orbit, their massive forms blotting out the sun. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, covered in crystalline armor that could deflect any known weapon. Their hulls gleamed with energy fields that could bend light itself. On Earth below, every human government detected the arrival instantly. Their primitive radar systems screamed warnings as the alien fleet appeared in their skies. Emergency broadcasts filled their communication networks. Military forces scrambled to respond to the greatest threat their species had ever faced. Kethvar watched their panic with mild interest. It was always the same. First came fear, then desperate attempts at communication, then usually surrender once they realized how outmatched they were. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we are receiving multiple transmission attempts from the planet's surface. They appear to be trying to establish contact. Let them try, Kethvar said. Fear will make them more reasonable when we finally respond. He had no way of knowing that down on Earth, in underground bunkers and hidden laboratories, human scientists were already working around the clock. They were analyzing every detail of the alien ships, recording their energy signatures, studying their movements. The same species that had split the atom and reached for the stars was now focused on a single goal: understanding their new visitors. The humans didn't know they were being evaluated for conquest. They thought this was first contact between equals. They were wrong, but their mistake would prove more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Admiral Kethvar finally decided to make contact after watching the humans scramble for 3 days. Their primitive military forces had surrounded the planet with every weapon they possessed. Laughable metal tubes filled with chemical explosives, pointed up at ships that could survive the heart of a star. Open a channel to their largest population centers, he commanded. Let them hear the voice of their new masters. The transmission reached Earth in dozens of languages, broadcast simultaneously to every government on the planet. Kethvar's image appeared on screens worldwide. 12 feet of crystalline armor and razor-sharp claws, 4 arms crossed in a gesture of supreme confidence. People of Earth, his voice boomed across the planet, translated by Zephyrian computers into every human language. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been selected for integration into our galactic order. Surrender now and your transition will be peaceful. Resist and you will learn why we have ruled the stars for 3 millennia. The response was not what he expected. Instead of immediate surrender or desperate pleas for mercy, the humans did something unprecedented. Every nation on Earth, countries that had been enemies for centuries, suddenly began sharing information. Military commanders who had never spoken to each other started coordinating defense plans. Scientists from different continents began working together as if their lives depended on it, because they did. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, several human vessels are approaching our outer perimeter. Kethvar looked at the display. 3 small ships, barely larger than Zephyrian shuttles, were moving toward his fleet. Their hulls were crude metal and ceramic composites. Their weapons were primitive projectile launchers that couldn't even scratch Zephyrian shields. Are they trying to attack us? He asked, genuinely confused. Unknown, sir. They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, attempting to establish communication. The humans wanted to talk. How typical. Primitive species always believed diplomacy could save them from their betters. Kethvar decided to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Destroy the lead vessel, he ordered. A single pulse from his flagship's main cannon vaporized the human ship instantly. The other two vessels stopped advancing but didn't retreat. Instead, they began transmitting on even more frequencies, their signals growing stronger and more complex. Sir, the communications officer said, they appear to be scanning our energy signature. Very primitive equipment, but they are definitely trying to analyze our weapons. Kethvar was mildly impressed. Most species fled after a demonstration of Zephyrian firepower. These humans were actually trying to study their destroyers. Foolish, but it showed a certain courage. Destroy the other two ships, he commanded. 2 more energy pulses eliminated the remaining human vessels. But within hours, something impossible happened. The humans launched another group of ships, and these ones had crude but functional energy shields. How is this possible? General Morthek demanded, studying the sensor readings. They developed shield technology in less than 1 rotation? Kethvar frowned. The human shields were pathetic compared to Zephyrian technology, barely able to deflect a fraction of his weapon's power. But they existed. A species that had never encountered energy weapons before had somehow created defensive systems in a matter of hours. Destroy them as well, he ordered. The second wave of human ships died as quickly as the first, but they lasted longer. Their shields absorbed several hits before failing. More importantly, they collected detailed sensor data on Zephyrian weapons before being destroyed. The third wave arrived the next day. These ships had better shields and something new. Weapons that fired concentrated energy beams instead of primitive projectiles. This is impossible, Morthek said as they watched the human ships actually damage a Zephyrian scout vessel before being destroyed. No species develops this quickly, but the humans did. Every destroyed ship provided them with more data. Every energy signature was analyzed and copied. Every weapon scan revealed new secrets about Zephyrian technology. On Earth, every factory had been converted to military production. Every scientist worked on reverse engineering alien technology. Every engineer focused on turning theoretical discoveries into practical weapons. The humans had done something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had militarized their entire civilization in a matter of days. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, we are detecting massive energy buildups on the planet's surface. Kethvar looked at the readings and felt his first moment of concern. The humans had built hundreds of energy weapons across their homeworld. Crude copies of Zephyrian technology, but functional enough to be dangerous. They learn quickly, he admitted. Very well. Begin orbital bombardment. We will conquer them the traditional way. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire on Earth's major cities. Their weapons could crack continents and boil oceans. But the humans had been preparing for this moment. As the first energy beam struck the planet, defensive systems activated worldwide. Massive shield generators, copied from captured Zephyrian technology, protected the largest population centers. Underground bunkers housed millions of civilians and critical equipment. Most impressively, the humans had built their own weapons platforms in space, hidden among their primitive satellites. The orbital battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 3 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed and a dozen more damaged. The humans had lost most of their space-based defenses, but they had accomplished something that should have been impossible. They had hurt a Zephyrian fleet. Request reinforcements, Kethvar ordered grimly, and prepare for ground assault. The invasion of Earth began 3 days later. Zephyrian warriors, each one capable of defeating a dozen primitive soldiers, descended on human cities in massive dropships. Their personal shields could deflect any human weapon. Their claws could cut through any human armor. Their psychic abilities could control human minds from miles away. But the humans had prepared for ground combat too. The first Zephyrian troops to land found themselves facing weapons that should not have existed. Human soldiers carried energy rifles that could pierce Zephyrian shields. They wore armor made from reverse-engineered crystalline compounds. Most disturbing of all, they seemed immune to psychic control. How are they resisting our mental commands? General Morthek demanded as his troops struggled to advance through New York City. The answer came from captured human equipment. The humans had developed psychic dampeners, crude devices that disrupted Zephyrian mental abilities. They had done it without any understanding of how psychic powers worked, using nothing but trial and error and desperate innovation. The battle for Earth's cities became a grinding urban warfare campaign. Zephyrian troops, accustomed to quick victories against terrified enemies, found themselves fighting humans who had turned every building into a fortress and every street into a killing ground. But the most disturbing thing about the humans wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their numbers. For every human killed, 3 more appeared to take their place. They bred faster than any advanced species, matured quickly, and learned from their mistakes with terrifying speed. "Admiral," Morthek reported after a week of ground combat, "we control the major population centers. But human resistance is actually increasing. They are using our own weapons against us." It was true. Dead Zephyrian warriors had been stripped of their equipment within hours. Human engineers were already producing crude copies of Zephyrian personal shields and energy weapons. What should have been a quick conquest was turning into a prolonged war. Kethavar stood on his bridge, watching reports flow in from across the planet. His forces were winning, but slowly. Too slowly. And every day the humans grew stronger. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethavar began to wonder if he had made a mistake. Down on Earth's surface, in hidden bunkers and underground factories, human scientists worked around the clock. They had learned something important from the first days of war. The Zephyrians could be beaten. Their technology could be copied. Their warriors could be killed. Most importantly, the humans had learned that they were not alone in the universe. And if there were other species out there, other civilizations under Zephyrian rule, then perhaps Earth's defenders could find allies. The war for Earth was just beginning, but it was already changing both species in ways neither could imagine. 6 months after the invasion began, Admiral Kethavar stood in the ruins of what humans had called London. Zephyrian banners flew from damaged buildings and his troops patrolled streets filled with rubble. By all appearances, the Empire had won another victory, but Kethavar knew better. This wasn't victory. This was a slow bleeding wound that refused to heal. "Report," he demanded as General Morthek approached through the debris. "We control 70% of major population centers," Morthek said, his crystalline armor scorched from recent combat. "But human resistance has not decreased. If anything, it grows stronger each day." The numbers supported this troubling assessment. Every week, Zephyrian forces faced more sophisticated weapons, better organized attacks, and larger groups of enemy fighters. The humans weren't behaving like a conquered species. They were behaving like a species at war. "How many reinforcements have we lost this month?" Kethavar asked. 47 ships and their crews, Morthek admitted. "The humans have learned to attack our supply lines. They use captured Zephyrian technology to build weapons we cannot detect until it's too late." This was the source of Kethavar's growing concern. Traditional conquest involved overwhelming a species with superior technology, then ruling through fear and force. But the humans refused to stay overwhelmed. Every piece of Zephyrian equipment they captured became a blueprint for something new. Deep beneath the ruins of London, in tunnels the Zephyrians hadn't found, Dr. Sarah Chen worked by the light of salvaged alien power cells. Around her, human engineers assembled weapons that violated every known law of physics. "The antimatter containment field is stable," reported Lieutenant Marcus Torres, reading data from a device built from Zephyrian components and human ingenuity. "We can mass-produce these bombs within 2 weeks." Sarah nodded grimly. 6 months ago, she had been a theoretical physicist studying quantum mechanics. Now she was part of a global resistance network that treated alien invasion like an engineering problem to be solved. "What about the psychic dampeners?" she asked. "Production is up 300%, said Commander Elena Vasquez through a secure communication link from the Australian underground facilities. "We figured out how to build them into helmets, body armor, even building materials. The aliens can't control anyone wearing our new equipment. This was humanity's secret weapon, adaptation speed. While the Zephyrians had spent millennia perfecting their technology, humans had spent centuries learning to innovate under pressure. Every new challenge became an opportunity to evolve." Above ground, Zephyrian patrols moved through empty streets, unaware that every step was monitored by hidden sensors. Human resistance fighters had turned the cities into vast intelligence networks, tracking alien movements and identifying weaknesses. They think they've won, whispered Jake Morrison into his throat microphone as he watched a Zephyrian squad march past his hiding spot. But they don't understand urban warfare. Jake had been a police officer before the invasion. Now he was part of a cell that specialized in ambush tactics. His team had killed more Zephyrian warriors than most armies, using nothing but stolen weapons and knowledge of their own city. "Target approaching your position," came the voice of Maria Santos from her sniper perch 3 blocks away. 4 aliens, standard patrol formation. "Copy that," Jake replied, checking his captured Zephyrian energy rifle. "Team 2, are you in position?" "Ready," confirmed David Kim from the building's basement. His team had rigged the entire street with improvised explosives built from alien technology. The Zephyrian patrol never saw the attack coming. Energy beams struck from multiple directions while explosive charges collapsed buildings around them. Within seconds, 4 of the galaxy's most feared warriors were dead, their equipment already being salvaged by human fighters who vanished into the ruins before reinforcements could arrive. This scene repeated itself across Earth every day. The Zephyrians controlled the major cities, but they couldn't control the spaces between buildings, the tunnels beneath streets, or the sky above their heads. Humans had turned their entire planet into a 3-dimensional battlefield. "Sir," reported Captain Zexnall as he entered Kethvar's temporary headquarters, "we intercepted human communications discussing something called Operation Swarm." Kethvar's attention sharpened. Human military communications had become increasingly sophisticated, using encryption methods based on captured Zephyrian technology. The fact that they had broken this code meant the message was important. What did they say? References to coordinated attacks on our supply depots, communication arrays, and command centers. But the details are unclear. They're using code words we don't understand. Unknown to the Zephyrians, Operation Swarm was already underway. In underground factories across 6 continents, humans were mass-producing a new type of weapon. Self-replicating machines designed to consume Zephyrian technology and reproduce themselves. Dr. Chen had based the design on nanotechnology theories, but built using principles learned from studying Zephyrian matter manipulators. The machines were tiny, nearly invisible, and programmed with a single purpose: find alien technology and dismantle it at the molecular level. "Release date is confirmed," she announced to resistance leaders worldwide during an encrypted video conference. "Every cell should deploy their swarm unit simultaneously for maximum effect." The attack began at midnight, coordinated across multiple time zones. Billions of microscopic machines were released into the air above Zephyrian positions. To the aliens, it looked like a light dust storm blowing through their camps. The first signs of trouble appeared 12 hours later. Zephyrian weapons began malfunctioning randomly. Communication systems experienced unexplained failures. Personal shields flickered and died without warning. "What is happening to our equipment?" General Morthek demanded as his own armor's power systems struggled to maintain function. The answer came from Zephyrian scientists analyzing samples of the mysterious dust. The microscopic machines were eating their technology from the inside out, converting advanced alien materials into raw matter and using it to build more machines. "Impossible," Kethvar said when he received the report. "No species has ever developed self-replicating nanotechnology, but the humans had. They had taken Zephyrian molecular manipulation technology, combined it with their own understanding of automation and programming, and created something the galaxy had never seen: a technological plague. Within days, Zephyrian forces found themselves fighting with increasingly unreliable equipment. Their energy weapons misfired. Their shields failed at critical moments. Their communication systems broadcast static more often than actual messages. The humans, meanwhile, had been using equipment specifically designed to resist their own nanotechnology. They pressed their advantage with coordinated attacks on weakened Zephyrian positions. "We need to evacuate to orbit," Morthek advised during an emergency strategy meeting. "Our ground forces cannot maintain effectiveness with failing equipment." Kethvar wanted to refuse, but the tactical situation was undeniable. His forces were being systematically weakened by an enemy they couldn't see or fight. The humans had weaponized their own technology against them. "Begin withdrawal to the fleet," he ordered. "We will maintain control through orbital bombardment." But as Zephyrian forces retreated to their ships, they discovered that the nanomachine plague had spread further than anyone realized. Maintenance workers and captured humans had carried the microscopic weapons into the fleet itself. Zephyrian ships began experiencing the same equipment failures that had plagued ground forces. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with barely concealed panic. "3 ships have lost primary power. The humans' machines are consuming our hull plating." For the first time since arriving at Earth, Kethvar felt true fear. His fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian military, was being eaten alive by weapons so small they were invisible. On Earth's surface, human resistance fighters watched the alien ships struggle with failing systems. They had accomplished something unprecedented, forcing a technologically superior enemy to retreat through sheer innovation and determination. But the humans weren't finished. In hidden laboratories around the world, scientists were already working on their next surprise. They had learned to fight the Zephyrians with captured technology and nanomachine swarms. Now they were preparing to take the war beyond Earth itself. Dr. Chen stood before a massive display showing Zephyrian fleet positions above the planet. Her team had been monitoring alien communications, learning about the broader galaxy and the empire that had sent these invaders. "They're not the only species out there," she announced to her fellow resistance leaders. "The Zephyrians rule other worlds, other civilizations, and if we can find them, we can teach them what we've learned." The war for Earth was entering a new phase. The humans had proven they could defend their homeworld. Now they were preparing to carry their fight to the stars themselves. Admiral Kethvar's request for reinforcements reached Emperor Vexthul at the worst possible time. The Empire was already dealing with mysterious equipment failures across dozens of star systems. Ships were breaking down in deep space. Weapons were misfiring during routine operations. Communication networks were failing without explanation. How did this contamination spread so quickly? The Emperor demanded, his forearms clenched in frustration. "Unknown, my lord," replied Science Minister Kethval. "Our best researchers believe the humans' nanomachines have somehow spread through our logistics network. Every ship that visited Earth may have carried the plague to other systems. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength had always been its technological superiority. Now that technology was being systematically destroyed by microscopic weapons that reproduced faster than they could be eliminated. But the nanomachine plague was only the beginning of the Empire's problems. Deep in the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter, humanity's first interstellar factory had been operating for 3 months, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid using captured Zephyrian technology. It mass-produced ships designed for a very specific mission, finding and contacting other species under Zephyrian rule. Captain Lisa Rodriguez commanded the first of these vessels as it emerged from hyperspace near the Kepler system. Her ship looked like a hybrid of human and Zephyrian technology, with Earth's industrial capability merged with alien engineering principles. "Sensors are detecting multiple inhabited worlds," reported her science officer, Dr. James Park. "And Zephyrian installations on each one." Lisa studied the tactical display. 3 planets showed signs of advanced civilization, but all of them were clearly under alien control. Massive orbital stations loomed over each world, while Zephyrian warships patrolled the space between planets. "Any signs of resistance?" "Negative. Whatever species live here appear to be fully integrated into the Empire." Lisa nodded grimly. According to intercepted Zephyrian communications, this system was home to the Hive clans, an insectoid species that served as the Empire's primary engineers. They had been conquered so long ago that most of them had never known freedom. "Take us to the outermost planet," she ordered. "We need to make contact without alerting the Zephyrians." The human ship approached slowly, its hull configured to mimic Zephyrian energy signatures. Lisa's team had spent months learning to disguise their vessels using captured alien technology. To casual sensors, they would appear to be another Imperial patrol. The planet below was a marvel of engineering. Massive cities stretched across entire continents connected by transportation networks that defied physics. But despite their technological achievements, the insectoid inhabitants clearly lived under strict Imperial control. "We're receiving communications from the surface," Dr. Park reported. "The local hive queen is requesting identification and purpose of visit." Lisa smiled. This was the moment they had prepared for. Open a channel and begin transmitting the Freedom Package. The Freedom Package was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, everything they had learned about fighting the Zephyrians. Nanomachine construction techniques, psychic dampener technology, asymmetric warfare tactics, weapons designs based on captured alien equipment. Most importantly, proof that the Zephyrians could be defeated. The Hive Queen's response was immediate and shocking. Instead of reporting the humans to Imperial authorities, she began asking questions. How had they developed such technology? How many Zephyrian ships had they destroyed? Was it really possible to resist the Empire? Our people have served for 8,000 years, the Queen transmitted privately. We had forgotten that freedom was possible. Within hours, hidden Hive clan factories were producing nanomachines designed to target Zephyrian technology. The insectoid's natural engineering skills, combined with human innovation, created weapons far more sophisticated than anything either species could have built alone. Lisa's mission was repeated throughout the galaxy. Human ships disguised as Imperial vessels made contact with dozens of enslaved species. The aquatic depth swimmers learned to build underwater weapons factories. The energy-based luminals discovered how to overload Zephyrian power systems from within. The reptilian stone shapers began constructing hidden fortresses that could withstand orbital bombardment. But humanity's greatest innovation wasn't technological. It was organizational. We're not trying to build an empire, Colonel Sarah Martinez explained to a gathering of alien resistance leaders via quantum communication link. We're building a network. Every species keeps their independence, but we share technology, tactics, and intelligence. This was revolutionary thinking in a galaxy where conquest meant domination. The humans weren't trying to replace the Zephyrians as galactic overlords. They were teaching other species to liberate themselves. The first coordinated uprising began in the Vega system, home to the reptilian stone shapers. Using human-provided technology and tactics, they destroyed the Zephyrian garrison and declared independence. Before Imperial reinforcements could arrive, the rebellion had spread to 3 neighboring systems. Emperor Vexthul watched the reports with growing alarm. The human contamination was spreading faster than his forces could contain it. Entire sectors were rising in rebellion, using weapons and tactics that seemed to evolve daily. How are they coordinating across such vast distances? He demanded. The answer came from intercepted rebel communications. The humans had established a galaxy-wide network using captured Zephyrian communication technology. But instead of centralized command, they used something the Empire had never encountered: distributed decision-making. Each resistance cell operated independently, but shared information instantly with thousands of others. When one group developed a new weapon or tactic, it spread across the network within hours. The rebellion had no central leadership to target, no critical nodes to destroy. They fight like a swarm, General Mortek observed. Destroy one part and the others adapt and continue. But the rebellion's true strength wasn't technological or tactical. It was psychological. For the first time in millennia, enslaved species across the galaxy had hope. They saw that the Zephyrians could be defeated, that freedom was possible, that they weren't alone in their desire for independence. The turning point came when the luminals, the energy beings who powered Zephyrian cities, simultaneously withdrew their cooperation across 50 star systems. Imperial installations went dark. Ships lost power. Weapons systems failed. The luminals had learned something from their human contacts. They didn't need to fight the Zephyrians directly. They could simply stop helping them. This act of coordinated resistance triggered a cascade effect across the Empire. Other species began withdrawing their cooperation, sabotaging Imperial operations or openly rebelling. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting on thousands of fronts simultaneously, their technological advantages neutralized by weapons designed specifically to counter them. My lord, Science Minister Kethaval reported with barely controlled panic, our latest intelligence suggests the humans have made contact with over 90% of enslaved species. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can suppress it. Emperor Vexthul stood silent for long moments, contemplating the unthinkable. His empire, built over 3 millennia of conquest, was crumbling in less than 2 years. A single primitive species had somehow united the galaxy against him. What do you recommend? He finally asked. Immediate withdrawal to the Imperial core worlds, Kethaval replied. We consolidate our remaining forces and attempt to hold what we can. It was a tacit admission of defeat. The Zephyrian Empire, which had once ruled half the galaxy, was retreating to its original borders for the first time in its history. But the humans and their allies weren't content with simply driving the Zephyrians back. They had learned something important about galactic politics. There could be no lasting peace while the Empire existed. As long as the Zephyrians possessed their advanced technology and military infrastructure, they would always be a threat to every free species. In secret bases throughout liberated space, human military advisors worked with alien allies to plan something unprecedented, a coordinated assault on the Zephyrian homeworld itself. They think retreat will save them, Admiral Chen said during a joint planning session with representatives from dozens of species. They're wrong. We're going to finish what they started when they came to Earth. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity didn't just fight to defend themselves. When threatened with extinction, they fought to ensure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. The assault on the Zephyrian homeworld began with silence. For 3 days, no ships approached the heavily fortified core system. No communications were intercepted. No enemy fleets appeared on long-range sensors. Emperor Vexthul stood in his crystal palace, watching the empty space beyond his world's orbital defenses, and felt the weight of absolute isolation. His empire was gone. 90% of Zephyrian space had fallen to the human-led rebellion. Billions of his people were dead or missing. The few survivors had retreated to their homeworld like wounded animals seeking shelter. Still no contact from our outer colonies? He asked his communications minister. Nothing, my lord. The humans appear to have eliminated every Zephyrian presence outside this system. Vexthul nodded slowly. In less than 2 years, a species that hadn't even known aliens existed had systematically dismantled an empire that had ruled for 3 millennia. The humans hadn't just defeated the Zephyrians, they had erased them, but the Emperor still believed his homeworld was safe. The planetary defenses were unlike anything in the galaxy. Energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation, orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets, and underground fortresses that could survive the death of the planet itself. He was wrong. Admiral Sarah Chen studied the tactical displays aboard her flagship, a massive vessel built from the combined technologies of 50 different species. Around her, the largest military fleet in galactic history prepared for the final battle. All strike groups report ready, announced her tactical officer, a former Zephyrian engineer who had defected early in the war. The nanomachine deployment is complete, Sarah nodded grimly. The humans hadn't spent 3 days in empty space. They had been seeding the entire system with an evolved form of their molecular weapons designed specifically to target Zephyrian technology. Every piece of equipment, every weapon, every defensive system in the core worlds was already being consumed from within. Begin Phase 1, she ordered. The attack didn't come from outside the system. It came from within. Every Zephyrian installation simultaneously experienced catastrophic failure as hidden nanomachines activated across the entire star system. Orbital defense platforms went offline. Communication networks collapsed. Even the Emperor's personal shields began flickering as their crystalline components were systematically dismantled at the molecular level. This is impossible, General Mortek said as emergency reports flooded the command center. Our sensors show no enemy presence. How are our systems failing? The answer came too late to matter. The humans had spent months studying captured Zephyrian equipment, learning every weakness, every critical component, every point of failure. Their nanomachines weren't random destroyers. They were precision instruments designed to cripple an entire civilization's technology simultaneously. With the planetary defenses neutralized, the human fleet finally revealed itself. Thousands of ships emerged from hyperspace, but these weren't the crude vessels that had first challenged Kethvar above Earth. These were hybrids of human engineering and captured alien technology, crewed by representatives from every species the Zephyrians had ever enslaved. This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Force. Sarah's voice echoed across every communication channel in the system. To all Zephyrian military personnel, your empire is finished. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the galactic standards your people never followed. The response was predictably Zephyrian. Emperor Vexthul activated the planet's final defense, a weapon designed to crack the world's core and destroy everything in the system, rather than allow conquest. The device failed to function. Human nanomachines had been eating its control systems for days. My lord, a technician reported with barely controlled terror, the core destabilizer is not responding. All our major weapons are offline. For the first time in his long life, Vexthul felt true helplessness. His people had always believed their technology made them invincible. Now that same technology had become their greatest weakness. The final assault was swift and merciless. Human-led forces landed on the Zephyrian homeworld with one mission: complete elimination of the species that had threatened Earth. But they didn't come as conquerors seeking to rule. They came as executioners, ensuring that this threat would never rise again. The ground battle lasted 12 hours. Zephyrian warriors, fighting with failing equipment and crumbling morale, were systematically hunted down by soldiers who had spent 2 years learning how to kill them efficiently. Every crystal fortress was breached. Every defensive position was overrun. Every attempt at organized resistance was crushed with overwhelming force. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez led the team that captured Emperor Vexthul in his crystal palace. The being who had once ruled half the galaxy cowered behind a failing energy shield, his forearms raised in surrender. "Please," he said, his mental voice weak without technological amplification. "My people can serve you as they served before. We can be useful." Lisa looked at him with the cold calculation that humans had learned from 2 years of total war. "No," she said simply. "You can't." The execution was carried out with the same clinical efficiency that had characterized the entire campaign. No ceremony, no speeches, no acknowledgement of the being who had once commanded trillions of lives. Vexthul simply ceased to exist along with the last hopes of his species. But killing the Emperor was only the beginning. The humans had learned something important from studying galactic history. Extinctions had to be complete to be permanent. Across the Zephyrian homeworld and its colonies, human-led teams conducted the most thorough elimination campaign in recorded history. Every Zephyrian genetic sample was destroyed. Every piece of their technology was dismantled and recycled. Every record of their culture was erased from galactic databases. The process took 6 months. When it was finished, there was no evidence that the Zephyrian Empire had ever existed. Their worlds were repopulated by liberated species. Their technology was distributed among the alliance that had defeated them. Their very name was removed from star charts and historical records. Complete erasure confirmed. Admiral Chen reported to the Allied Council 6 months after the final battle. No Zephyrian genetic material, technology, or cultural artifacts remain in known space. The species is extinct. The Council, representing over 200 formerly enslaved civilizations, received this news with mixed emotions. Relief that the threat was gone. Satisfaction that justice had been served, but also a deep growing awareness of what their human allies were truly capable of. "What happens now?" asked the Hive Queen, speaking for many of the assembled representatives. Sarah Chen looked out at the delegates, beings from across the galaxy who had learned to work together under human guidance. "Now you're free," she said simply. "All of you, forever." But freedom, they were learning, came with a price. The humans didn't want to rule the galaxy, but they had made it clear what would happen to anyone who threatened their allies or their homeworld. The Zephyrians had learned this lesson too late. In the years that followed, galactic civilization rebuilt itself along new principles. Species that had never cooperated before worked together on massive projects. Technology was shared freely rather than hoarded. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than conquest, and watching over it all from their small blue world in an unremarkable spiral arm were the humans. They didn't rule the galaxy, but everyone understood that they protected it. They had proven something that no species in galactic history had ever demonstrated, that they would do whatever was necessary to defend those under their protection. The other species called it the human peace, and it lasted for millennia, not because the humans demanded obedience, but because everyone remembered what had happened to the last species that had threatened them. The Zephyrians had been considered the alpha species of the galaxy. They had ruled through fear, technology, and overwhelming force. They had believed their power made them invincible. They had been wrong. In the end, there was no alpha species when humans decided you no longer deserved to exist. There was only extinction, complete and final, carried out with the same methodical efficiency that had once split atoms and reached for the stars. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Humans didn't fight to conquer. They fought to survive, and when survival was at stake, they would erase any threat from existence itself. The age of the Zephyrian Empire was over. The age of human protection had begun, and in the silence of space where the crystal ships had once sailed, there remained only the memory of a species that had learned too late what it meant to threaten Earth.